Welcome back to another episode of Stories from the Workbench. I'm Pastor Dave Carl, and this is my Shop of Wonders. Today, we get to talk about Moses one more time. Now, this is part 3 in our series on Moses, but first let's talk about tools. So if you've just recently joined us on Stories from the Workbench, you might not know why I do this crazy tool stuff and Bible stories all at the same time. Well, I'm excited to fill you in. Now, when we started with this whole COVID pandemic about a year and a half ago now, we were all quarantined, locked in our homes basically, and well, I'm a pastor. And as a pastor, I spend a lot of time with people in good times and during difficult struggles, and I couldn't do any of that. And I really felt at quite a loss. So I started to wonder, what could I do that would matter, that would make a ministry difference, and would be, well, fun because, you know, I like having fun. One of my passions is woodworking. Now, my dad taught me a bunch when I was a kid, and I went on and learned a ton more from books, woodworking magazines, and YouTube. Well, over the years, I made a lot of furniture. Some pretty good and some, well, sort of iffy. But I always learned. I was also slowly acquiring tools, mostly from garage sales or eBay. I'm really cheap, so I was always looking for a bargain. I made some tools, and I built my shop to what it is today. Well, even more of a passion for me than woodworking is telling Bible stories. Now, I love telling stories, but I love telling Bible stories the very most. So when I started to mash up woodworking with telling Bible stories, Stories from the Workbench began. Now, after all of that introduction, I feel the need to talk about some tools. So I've got some tools today that are pretty so common you probably don't even think much about them. And then I have a pretty fun and exotic tool that I can hardly wait to tell you about. So let's get started. Shop lights are not very exciting, but I couldn't work out here much without them. Over the years, I've hung fluorescent shop lights. Then I started to swap them out to LED lights. LED lights are my friend. They run cool. They rarely burn out, and they just pour out lots of good light. There's another kind of light that I use a lot in the shop too. Let me show you. This is my little collection of battery-powered lights. I occasionally need them to do some work up in the attic, or something breaks outside at night, or like it did this last winter here in Texas. The power was going on and off for days, but I was able to keep things fixed and running because, well, I could see in the dark and move around with all these portable lights. This one straps to my head. Very handy in the dark. No matter what I'm looking at, I can see it in the dark with this. For perhaps more light, but less portable, I have these other lights. This works off of AA batteries. This one actually works off my drill motor battery, and this can light up a room. So I've got this little one that I can hang it on something. It also has a little magnet on the back. I can attach it to something, which came in very helpful last winter when I had some plumbing problems. So I don't use these all the time, but when I need them, I really need them. Okay, fair warning, this next tool is pretty cool and out of the ordinary. So I would just suggest you, grab onto something solid. This is a biscuit joiner. Wahoo! So this is a side panel for a hope chest I'm working on for my daughter Lily, who, by the way, does all the artwork for this show. So if you want to hire her for lots of money, just, give me a buzz. Now, the challenge with a panel like this is a single board to here, and then I've glued on a second board. And it needs to be done well so that it's flat on both sides, and, well, it's probably a little more difficult than it sounds. Now, when the glue dries, you might find that your board was just a little bit forward or just a little bit back, and now you're going to have to spend a lot of time planing or sanding the high spots down, which will result in an overall thinner panel. I want my boards to go together nicely. So how could I do that? The Biscuit Joiner has an adorable little baby saw blade that spins and is spring-loaded, so when I push the tool in, the blade is exposed. And cuts a lovely little slot, just the right depth. So I simply draw 2 pencil lines, kind of roughly where I want them to go, and I use these red lines as my gauge. I just match that red line up to that pencil line. And I've cut a very nice slot. I put biscuits in the slots, and I have a nicely aligned and flush board. This is awfully exciting. I hope it wasn't too much for you. Our story today is God and Moses, boop, 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 part 3.
Because this is a Bible story, I get to tell you that everything in the Bible is true. It really happened.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Previously, on God and Moses Part 2, Moses and Aaron asked the Pharaoh to let my people go, and he did not. Then there were many plagues, lots of them. Still the Pharaoh said, "Just kidding, they cannot leave." God will now send the angel of death throughout the land. Every firstborn of every home will die to show you that God is the only God. So every Jewish family was supposed to have painted lamb's blood over the frame of their doors so that the angel of death would pass over their homes. Passover. So when the night came, all the homes that did not have the blood over the doorposts, well, the firstborn of that home died. Even the firstborn of the livestock, the cows, the horses, the goats and sheep, they all died too. It was terrible and sad, and the Egyptians, they were crying throughout the land. "All right, Moses, I can't take it anymore. Leave, all of you, just leave and never return." In fact, the whole nation of Egypt wanted the Jews to leave so badly that they gave them gifts just so they would go. "Moses, Aaron, on behalf of all of the Egyptians, take our gold and just leave. We are sad and tired, and we just want you to go away." Wow, that is a really large bag of gold. God had told them to get dressed for travel and to be ready to go. So they goed. They just went. "All right, everyone, follow me." I'm following. It was very exciting. After 430 years of living as slaves in Egypt, the Jews were free and headed for the Promised Land. But wait, there's more. So God gave Moses and the Israelites, this is 2 million Jews, and, if you're having trouble believing that this is almost 2 million Jews, might I remind you that for the last 2 episodes you've believed that Moses was a piece of dowel. So, God gave Moses and the Israelites a pillar of cloud during the day. But at night, it turned into a pillar of fire. When it moved, they moved. When it stopped, they stopped. They could travel in the day. They could even travel at night. I've heard smart guys say that the cloud would give them shade in the heat of the desert, and the fire would give them warmth in the freezing cold of the desert night. God is pretty amazing. Moses, the Red Sea, it's really, really big. We better go another way. I know. It's gigantic. I don't know what to do next. We followed the pillar of cloud here. This is where God wants us. I just don't know what to do.
Meanwhile, back at the palace.
My Pharaoh, Egypt is ruined. We have endured plagues and finally death of our firstborn. Now we've just sent all of our slaves away. We need them to get this mess cleaned up and get us back on track again. You're right. What have I done? We need them back. Tell your generals to get the army and all of the chariots together. We need the Jews to come back and get to work. If anybody resists, we will kill them on the spot as an example to the others. Yes, do all of that. Get them back.
So the Egyptian army got on their horses and on their chariots. It might not seem like it to us, but back then a chariot was a terrifying thing. It was like a fast attack vehicle, and it was nearly unstoppable. The Egyptians were angry, and they were ready to rumble.
The nation of Israel was trapped between the Red Sea and the army of Egypt that was rushing toward them. It looked really, really bad. It was so bad that some of the Jews were angry at both God and Moses. Moses, why did you bring us out here in the wilderness to die? Huh? Weren't there enough graves in Egypt? Oh, you have got to be kidding. God is doing a great thing here. Did you already forget about the plagues? What have you done to us? Why did you make us leave Egypt? You did not just say that. He did not just say that, did he? Didn't we tell you this would happen while we were still in Egypt? We said, leave us alone. Let us be slaves to the Egyptians. Oh, it's better to be a slave in Egypt than a corpse in the wilderness. Ah!
Moses and Aaron had a really tough job. Moses had thought it was difficult to lead sheep around for 40 years. That was easy peasy next to leading this stiff-necked people around.
So the Jews were following the cloud. Well, the Egyptian army was following close behind, and so God moved the pillar of cloud from in front of the Jews to behind them, but in front of the army of Egypt. Now the sun was going down, and it was going to be getting dark shortly. This is crazy. Are you ready for this? God changed the pillar of cloud into half a pillar of fire and half a pillar of cloud that stopped the army of Egypt. Now, the fire side was lighting the way forward for the nation of Israel. They could see everything in front of them. And the army of Egypt was shrouded in darkness. Is this amazing or what? Don't you see that pillar of cloud right there? That's God. Don't be afraid. Just stand still and watch the Lord rescue you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see them again. The Lord Himself will fight for you. Just stay calm. Then Moses looked over the Red Sea, and it was impossible. It was impossible to cross. It'd take a miracle to get out of this. You know, I often hear people say, God will never give you more than you can handle. Okay, that is not in the Bible. In this story, Moses, 2 million people on the edge of the Red Sea with the mad, angry, chariot-riding army of Egypt were coming to kill them. This was more than they could handle. Virtually every Bible story is a story of people who have more than they can handle. God often gives us more than He can handle, because then we draw our eyes to Him, we cry for help, and He comes to our rescue. Aaron, what am I supposed to do? This is so bad. Then God said to Moses,
Why are you crying out to me, Moses? Tell the people to get moving. Pick up your staff and raise your hand over the sea. Divide the water so the Israelites can walk through the middle of the sea on dry ground.
Then Moses raised his hand over the sea, and the Lord opened up a path through the water with a strong east wind. The impossible was possible with God. The wind blew all that night, turning the seabed into dry land. So the people of Israel, I'm coming. The people of Israel walked through the middle of the sea on dry ground with walls of oddly colored water on each side. Oh, I'm coming. Moses, it's taken all night, but this is the last of the people. We've all gotten across. The pillar of fire moved away, allowing the Egyptians to come rushing into the dry seabed between the walls of water. Moses, they're coming after us.
Moses, raise your hand over the sea again. Then the waters will rush back and cover the Egyptians and their chariots.
Moses obeyed God, and the waters rushed back to its usual place. And all of the Egyptians who had chased the Israelites into the sea, not a single one survived. God used Egypt, a nation who did not know God or care about Him in any way, to grow His chosen people from a kind of large family into a nation of perhaps more than 2 million people. This is such a great story, and there are more amazing miracles ahead, but we're going to wrap up today on God's great deliverance of the nation of Israel as they went through the Red Sea. Thanks for spending time with me again in the workshop, and I hope to see you next time on Stories from the Workbench.